Hello, welcome to today's installment of the Daf Yomi, Masechet Bava Metzia, Tractate Bava Metzia, and we're doing Daf 61 Omid A. So just continue from last Omid. The Gemara asks, but those interpret the verse concerning robbery as prohibiting interest or exploitation and say that it is written so that these prohibitions always involve violating two prohibitions. The Gemara answers, prohibition against robbery is applied to a case of withholding the wages of a hired labourer because it is a matter derived from its context. And this prohibition is written in the context of a matter of a hired labourer. You shall not oppress your neighbour, nor rob him, and the wages of a hired servant shall not abide with you all night until the morning. Leviticus 19:13. The Gemara asks, why do I need the prohibition, you shall not steal? Leviticus 19:11. It's like a neighbour. Be able to steal anything, even as a joke, or even if one has the intention of giving it back. It's also prohibited to steal in order to render oneself liable to pay the double payment in order to cause the victim temporary distress. Rambam Sefer Nazik and Hilchei Neighbor 1-2 Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat 348-1 at the Mitzvah Road. This is yet another prohibition against taking money by illegitimate means, and it could be derived from the other prohibitions mentioned previously. The Gemara answers that it is necessary for the Muslim to write that prohibition for that which is taught in the Bible. You shall not steal applies in all circumstances, even if you do so only in order to aggravate the victim. The Mekat, according to the Shittim Mekubeses, this is referring to one who steals in order to cause a loss to the victim, while the thief himself derives no benefit from the stolen item. The Rambam indicates this is referring to one who steals with intent to temporarily aggravate the victim, or planning to soon return the stolen item. And the victim, you shall not steal, applies in all circumstances, even if you do so in order to pay the double payment as a gift to the person from whom you stole. Rav Yema said to Rav Ashi, why do I need a prohibition in the verse with regard to weights? You shall do no unrighteousness in judgment, in measure, in weight, or in volume. It was 1935. It is merely another form of robbery. Rav Ashi said to him, it is referring to a seller who buries his weights in salt. But Termain Miskalosov, most commentators explain, citing the Tosefta and other sources, that is referring to a fraudulent practice employed by a seller, designed to make the weights lighter. Rambeinu Tam, Rashi maintains that burying the weights in salt makes them heavier, and the Gemara is referring to a fraudulent practice employed by a buyer. In any case, so this makes no difference with regard to the prohibition itself, as anyone who exploits another by tampering with the weights has violated the prohibition, whether he is the seller or the buyer. The Lightning Rav Yema said that is the same as full-fledged robbery, therefore it should not require a separate derivation. Rav Ashi answered, it is written to establish that he violates the prohibition from the moment of the act of burying them. He violates the prohibition even before he actually deceives the buyer with the buried weight. The sages taught, the verse says, you shall do no unrighteousness in judgment, in measure, in weight, or in volume. The Bava Metzia Daf, Leviticus 19:35. In measure, this is referring to the measure of land. Medidas Kalka, Rashi explains that the length of the rope used to measure land changes based on atmospheric conditions. Abanane offers an alternative explanation. In the summer, the land breaks apart and widens slightly, producing cracks that close in the winter. There is therefore a difference between measurements performed in the summer and winter. E.g., this means that in a case where two people are dividing their jointly owned field, one may not measure land to be given to one during the summer and measure land to be given to the other during the rainy season, because the length of the measuring cord is affected by the weather conditions. What does that mean? Medidas Kalka Sonos. In the case of one who measures the land that is to be divided between two partners, he may not measure it for one person in the summer and for the other in the winter, as the length of the measuring rope changes with the seeds, and consequently, if he used a rod or chain whose length does not vary, he has done nothing wrong. Bava Metzia Daf 231:18. In weight, this is referring to the fact that he may not measure his weight in salt. Permitted to bury one's weight in salt, as it causes the weight to lose mass, which is to the barrier's detriment. Bava Metzia Daf 87, 231:11. And the volume is teaches that one may not froth the liquid. One should measure liquid by pouring slowly to prevent the development of foam that will cause the measuring container to appear full. This applies despite the fact that the foam will then settle and it will be possible to actually measure the liquid. Bava Metzia Daf 87, 31:6. When it's selling, creating the impression that there's more liquid in the vessel than there actually is. There's more as, and all the following matters not referred a fortiori. Kavachomer. One of the fundamental principles of rabbinical exegesis, the a fortiori inference appears in all the standard lists of the exegetical principles. In essence, it's the principle of logical argumentation, where a comparison is drawn between two cases. One is more lenient and the other more stringent. The a fortiori inference asserts that the halacha is stringent in a case where the ruling is usually lenient, and then all the more so will be stringent in a more serious case. Likewise, if the halacha is lenient in a case where the ruling is not usually lenient, then it will certainly be lenient in a stringent case. A fortiori argumentation appears in the Bible, and the sages compiled lists of verses in which the fortiori inferences appear. For example, if you have run with the foot soldiers and they've worried you, how can you contend with horses? Jeremiah 12:5. And if, with regard to the Mesorah volume, which equals 1/33 of a log is a basic liquid measure used by the sages. It's equivalent to the volume of 6 eggs, a fourth of a calf, 1/24 of a seah. The range of modern opinions estimates its volume at 300 to 600 milliliters. The Torah was fastidious concerning it, though it may not deceive another, and it may be inferred a fortiori that is regard to a hin. A hin is a measure of volume equal to half a seah or 12 log. Which is 12 log and a half hin, the third hin and a quarter hin and a log and a half log and a quarter log, which are all much larger volumes, that one may not deceive another. Rava says, why do I need the mention of the exodus from Egypt that the merciful word in the context of the halacha of the prohibition against interest? Because 25:37-38, and the mention of the exodus from Egypt, God to the midst of Aaron ritual finish in Numbers 15:39-41, and the mention of the exodus from Egypt in the context of the prohibition against prohibition concerning weight, because 19:35-36, Rava explains, the Holy One, blessed be He, said, I am He who distinguished in Egypt between the drop of seed that became a firstborn and a drop of seed that did not become a firstborn, and I killed only the firstborn. I am He who is destined to exact punishment from one who attributes ownership of his money to a Gentile and thereby lends it to a Jew with interest. Even if he is successful in deceiving the court, God knows the truth. And I am He who is destined to exact punishment from one who buries his weight in salt, as it changes their weight in a manner not visible to the eye. And I am also He who is destined to exact punishment from one who hangs ritual fringes dyed with indigo. Kala ilan, what's that? To indigo, indigo ferritin clitora L, is a plant from the Fabaceae family. Its flowers can be red, pink, or white, and the blue indigo dye is produced from its leaves. This plant, once the most important source of color blue for weavers, was grown principally in India, but also in other lands, including the Middle East. It is only in the past few generations that the use of the plant has decreased due to the substitution of synthetic indigo. According to the Gemara, the plant-based indigo dye looks similar to sky blue dye, but is substantially cheaper. It can be extremely difficult to detect the forgery. Interestingly, blue dye derived from the Mox trunculus snail that has been identified by a number of contemporary researchers as the Talmudic chilozin, from which the sky blue dye was made, has been revealed to be chemically identical to indigo derived from this plant. This will explain the difficulty describing the Gemara of distinguishing the two. And kalailan indigo, this word comes from the Greek kalainon, meaning black or dark dye. Tola Kalan Ilan, hands which are fringes dyed with indigo dye. Several early commentaries explain that this is not referring to one who merely hangs fringes of this type on his garment, rather to one who sells such fringes as correctly dyed sky blue in order to defraud his customers. That's Rabbeinu Yonatan Rosh and the Ritva on his garment and says it is dyed with the sky blue dye required in ritual fringes. The allusion to God's ability to distinguish between two apparently like entities is why the Exodus is mentioned in all of these contexts. The Gemara relates, Ravina. The Gemara is referring to Ravina the first, who belonged to the sixth generation of the Amorim of Babylon. He studied in Surah as a pupil and a colleague of Rav Ashi, with whom he co-edited what became the base of the Babylonian Talmud. The Amorah of the same name, Ravina the second, nephew of Ravina the first, belonged to the 8th and final generation of Amorim. In the first decade of the first century, Rav Ashi died in 427, and Ravina the first died in 421. Led a group of Amorim in the significant endeavor of compiling the Babylonian Talmud, collecting and editing the discussions, debates, and rulings of hundreds of scholars and sages that have taken place over more than 200 years since the compilation of the Mishnah by Rabbi Huda Lassi. The last of these editors and compilers was Ravina II. After his time, the Talmud became the basis for all further discussion and development of Jewish law. See 86a. Having to come to Surah on the Euphrates, Rav Hanin of Surah on the Euphrates said to Ravina, "Why do I need the mention of the exodus from Egypt that the Muslim wrote in the context of creeping animals? Do not make yourself detestable with all the creeping animals that swarm, for I am the Lord who brings you up for the land of Egypt." Leviticus 11:43-45. Ravina said to him, the Holy One, he said, "I am he who distinguished in Egypt between the drop of seed that became a firstborn and the drop of seed who did not become a firstborn, and I killed only the firstborn. I am he who is destined to exact punishment from one who intermingled the innards of non-kosher fish with the innards of kosher fish and sold them to a Jew who was unable to distinguish between them." Kaveh dagim, innards of fish. This expression refers primarily to fish eggs or caviar, which is often sourced separately from the fish itself. As it is difficult to distinguish between eggs of different species of fish, it's particularly hard to ascertain whether fish eggs are from kosher or non-kosher fish. This is also caused of a modern halachic issue with regard to the status of caviar in cases where the source of the eggs is uncertain. Hanina said to him, "I was not asking about the very mention of the Exodus. Rather, I was asking about the term who brings you up, mentioned that verse. That is what is difficult for me. What is different here that the Muslim wrote, who brings you up from the land of Egypt, as opposed to the other three instances cited by Rabbi where the Exodus is mentioned in the context of mitzvot and prohibition where it is written, who brought you out?" Ravina said to him, "It is to teach that as it was taught in the school of Rabbi Shmuel, the Holy One said, had I brought the Jewish people up from Egypt only for this matter, so that they would not become impure by consuming creeping animals, it would have been sufficient for me, as observance of this mitzvah elevates the spiritual stature." Ravina said to him, "And is the reward for abstaining from consuming creeping animals greater than the observance of observing the halacha with regard to interest in ritual fringes and weights, as the Muslim right, who brings you up in the context of those mitzvot as well?" Ravina said to him, "Even though the reward is not greater, it is more important for Jews to eat creeping animals. Avoiding these animals brings them up in a sense that is praiseworthy and enhances the transcendent nature of the Jews." The mission teaches. And what is Talbit? It is the case of one who enters into a transaction that yields an increase in the produce beyond his investment. How so? For example, a case where one acquired wheat from another at the price of 1 quart of wheat for 1 gold dinar, with wheat to be supplied at a later date, and such was the marketplace of wheat at the time he acquired it. The price of 1 quart of wheat had then increased and stood at 30 dinars. At that point, the buyer said to the seller, "Give me all my wheat now, as I wish to sell it and purchase wine with it." The seller said to him, "Since it is ultimately wine that you want, not wheat, each quart of your wheat is considered by me to be worth 30 dinars, and you have the right to collect this value in wine from me." And in this case, the seller did not have wine in his possession. And we'll ask, is that saying that all these cases that we said in the mission till now are not cases of interest? Rabbi Abahu says, until here, the first two cases it presents, the mission is referring to cases of interest by Torah law. And from this point forward, the mission is referring to cases of interest by rabbinic law. If the lender does not explicitly stipulate that the debtor must pay a sum greater than the value of the loan, they did not violate the Torah prohibition of interest, but Sage is permitted doing so. And so says Rava, until here the mission is referring to cases of interest by Torah law, and from this point forward the mission is referring to cases by rabbinic law. The Gemara comments, in the cases that in the mission cited until here there is a fulfillment of the verse, "The wicked may prepare and the righteous shall don," in Job 27:17. Yachin Moshe v'Yiva Sadik. That wording in Job is different. The Gemara quotes the verse in a slightly altered version in order to clarify the verse's meaning, which can be understood from its context, which is interpreted as referring to the case of a wicked father who collects interest from borrowers. Upon inheriting the father's estate, his righteous son is not obligated to return the interest to the borrower. The Gemara asks, is this verse applicable only in the cases discussed until here? No further. It is logical that if the heir does not return the interest that was paid by Torah law, all the more so should the heir not need to return the interest that was paid by rabbinic law. And the Rabbi said, even in the cases discussed until here, one can apply the verse, "The wicked may prepare and the righteous shall don." The Gemara comments, until here the Tana cites cases of fixed interest, i.e., where the amount to be paid as interest was fixed at the time of the loan, which is prohibited by Torah law. From this point forward, the Tana cites cases only with a hint of interest prohibited by rabbinic law, as there is no fixed sum paid as interest. Rabbi Elazar says fixed interest can be removed from the lender's possession by means of legal proceedings adjudicated by judges. By contrast, in cases of a hint of interest prohibited by rabbinic law, the money paid cannot be removed by means of legal proceedings adjudicated by judges. Rabbi Yochanan says even fixed interest cannot be removed by means of legal proceedings adjudicated by judges. Rabbi Yitzchak says, what is the reason for the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan? It is, as the verse states, he has given forth with neshech and took tarbet, shall he live? He shall not live. He performed all these abominations. He shall be executed, his blood shall be upon him. Ezekiel 18:13. It can be inferred that one who takes interest is subject to death at the hands of heaven, but not to repayment, as the court cannot compel him to repay the interest. Citing a different proof of Ahava said that the verse states, "You shall not take from him nesech or tarbet, you shall fear your God, and your brother shall live with you." Verse 27:36. It can be inferred that one who does so is subject to shirking the fear of heaven, but not to repayment. Rashba explains, he who fears heaven will repay the money out of fear, but the court cannot force him to do so. The Ritva gives a different explanation. One who fears heaven will refrain from taking interest on the loan, but if he has already done so, he is not obligated to return it. However, said it can be derived from the verse in Ezekiel itself, not by inference as it is written. He shall be executed, his blood shall be upon him, in Ezekiel 18:13. In the verse, lenders who charged interest were juxtaposed with shadows of blood. Hukshu mal ribis. These two sentences are actually somewhat similar, as one who extracts interest from a borrower diminishes his property, and he is therefore similar to one who injures the body of another. It's just as shadows of blood are not subject to repayment, so too lenders who charge interest are not subject to repayment. Rav Naaman by Yitzchak said, what is the reason for the opinion of Rabbi Elazar that interest prohibited by Torah can be reclaimed by means of legal proceedings adjudicated by judges? It is as the verse concerning the prohibition against taking in the state, and your brother shall live with you in Leviticus 25:36, and from which is derived returning in his tomb so that he may live. And that moves on to the next daf. I wish you a very good day and peace in Israel. All the best. Bye.